Hi, and welcome to the podcast Raw Chatter. I am your host, Vicky Midwood. I am a health, nutrition, and lifestyle coach, and I specialize in helping people with anxiety, alcohol issues, food addiction, bulimia, anorexia, emotional eating, stress eating, overeating, anything to do with health issues are brought upon by those issues. And today I'm flying solo. So let's crack on. The title of this episode is What the Fuck? Autoimmune Issues Suck. And they really do. Now, I am going to be sharing about the autoimmune issues that I am familiar with, the ones that I have, which are a consequence of my issues with alcohol and with food. Now, they're not just a consequence of that, but that plays a massive, massive part. There is definitely a genetic component with definitely one of my issues, which is related to my thyroid. And chances are, having listened to what some of the things my dad complained about, they're actually probably on both sides. So for those of you who don't know a little bit about me, I've been in the health and wellness industry for the last 33 years. I got into it by chance because it was a really good excuse for me to be able to legitimately over-exercise, hide my eating problems behind the facade of being a fitness instructor and personal trainer. And that's what I did from 1991. And I still do. I still do teach classes. I love teaching. I now teach mainly online, in-person Pilates, and I have personal training clients. Only a few, but that was my main business. And if you have read the chapter in my book, the book Collaboration, Women Thrive, I do talk about how I got into it. So I'm not going to go into that now. If you want to know more about my story, it's on my website, www.vickymidwood.com. And as I say, it's also in my chapter, The Messy Madness That Set Me Free, in the book Women Thrive, inspiring stories, true stories even, of women overcoming adversity. Now, it makes it sound like we've overcome adversity and that's it, all is good. And here's the thing, all is not, right? And this is why, what the fuck, autoimmune issues suck. Because I am dealing with yet another autoimmune issue. So I've now got 3. Hurrah! Okay. And what we find with autoimmune issues is that you may begin with one and then you may begin with another. Now, I'm not going to go into the science behind autoimmune issues. I could do, but for the people who are listening, I don't think that that's your bag. This is not a science podcast. If you want to know more about it, feel free to jump in onto Andrew Huberman. The Huberman Lab podcast goes into all kinds of reasons behind why autoimmune issues and just what is happening on a cellular level. But for me, mine have been caused by my gut issues, or to be more specific, leaky gut. And what we do know is there isn't an autoimmune out there that doesn't also have issues linked to gut. And this is where it is so important that we start joining the dots between the gut and mental and emotional symptoms. Because I really genuinely thought that I was suffering from depression. And I went back to my GP 3 times before I finally got some private blood testing done and discovered that I had definitely got Hashimoto's. Now, for those of you who don't know, Hashimoto's is a thyroid disorder whereby basically your immune cells are mistaking the thyroid as an invader, a pathogen. And that means that it affects you in many, many ways. So I am also, I discovered, and I actually think that I had this potentially looking back now, before I got my Hashimoto's diagnosis. It's hard to know when, because you'll see why when I read off the symptoms and what I'm going to talk about, why it was hard for me to know. So I also have something called Sjogren's. And this is something that, for sure became a lot worse after I had my heart attack. Coincidence? Potentially. I don't know whether it was going to happen anyway, whether it already was. I just wasn't looking for the signs because I didn't know. But definitely rheumatoid arthritis, which is now showing itself up with issues with my thumb and issues around my elbow. Then it's likely that it's been there for a while. We feel symptoms when something has been building up and has been a problem for ages. We don't just suddenly get symptoms because, hello, the disease has appeared, right? It doesn't work like that. The symptoms would have been letting you know that they were there for a wee while. It's just that we are rubbish because we're not trained to tune into them. And that is one of the things that I am passionate about, is helping you to actually tune in to your own body and mind and learn to listen and read the signs and the symptoms. Your body talks to you. Your mind talks to you. It lets you know if there is stuff that you need to be addressing. And as human beings, we are flipping excellent at ignoring those signs and symptoms, usually because we've been taught to. Yes. Oh, it'll go away. Don't worry about it. Just have a little rest. It'll go off. Right. This is what we've got to get away from. If you are suffering from symptoms that keep reappearing, keep showing themselves, keep getting stronger, keep getting more obvious, keep getting more frequent, it's kind of a clue, right? It's not rocket science, is it? It's kind of a clue that you need to take action. And that's normally the point where you go either to a physio or you go to your GP, when the symptoms and the signs are so strong that you can't keep brushing them aside anymore. The thing is, if you hadn't brushed them aside in the first place, and I'm including me on this, then chances are it could have been dealt with at the core and rectified much, much sooner, but not always, right? When it comes to autoimmune issues, there isn't a cure in inverted commas. But what we can do is learn how to arrest them, stop them from getting any worse, and manage the symptoms as best we can. Now, I posted yesterday, it was Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK yesterday for the King's coronation. So if you're listening to this at a later date, you can look back at when that was. But the King's coronation was on May the 6th, 2023. And the UK decided it was going to have a bank holiday to celebrate the fact. So I had a bit of a wobble over that weekend, to be quite honest, but I posted about it on social media because I think it's important to let people know that, yes, I'm a health, nutrition, and lifestyle coach. Yes, I help people get over their issues with alcohol dependence and food and anxiety and so forth. But I have my own issues. I am not perfect because there is no such thing. I'm a human being. Therefore, by default, I can never be perfect. But I do sometimes struggle, and I have off days, I have off weekends, I have off weeks, right, where I do not feel on top form. Do I keep showing up for my clients? Yes, I do. Does it make it a struggle and hard for me to be able to do that at times, having these autoimmune issues? For sure it does. And so I shared about that, and I think it's really important that we just get away from this idea that everything on social media should be all shiny bright and everything's tickety-boo and look how wonderful my life is and da-da-da, because that's just not true for anybody, right? We're not going to usually post about the crappy stuff. More and more people are, and I think it's important that we do. So I was talking about how I was feeling very kind of low and depressed and vulnerable. Things that I was doing were not working out in the way that I was hoping that they would. And I'm going to take that. That is my stuff, and I'm owning it. Having expectations on outcomes, I know, is a hiding to nothing, right? Because I'm not in control of the outcome of anything. So my focus needs to be on the process and just serving people who need my help, and that's it. But I am human, and I tend to forget that at times. And so if I don't get the outcome that I want, then it does feel sometimes quite personal. And I know logically it's not, but emotionally it's sometimes hard not to take it that way. And they start to listen to the old stories of not good enoughness, not successful, people don't want what I'm offering, all that kind of garbage starts coming into my head. And when those thoughts start to come in, it's going to create a stress response. Now, when you've got an autoimmune issue, getting stressed is the worst thing that you can do. So I'm going to just explain a little bit about how the autoimmune issues that I have affect me. So rheumatoid arthritis, kind of obvious, not getting swelling, but definitely soreness that is intermittent. And this is the problem. A lot of the time, it's not massively affecting you every single day, But if you don't look after yourself, and this is what I've discovered from myself and from the people that I work with, the clients that I help who also have autoimmune issues, if we stop doing the stuff regularly that makes a difference, then those symptoms will come back and we can get what we call a flare. Now, getting stressed about stuff will bring a flare on much, much quicker. And a flare is just really an exaggeration of all of those symptoms. They kind of feel like they're hitting you like a lead balloon. And that's what happened to me over the weekend. Was it because over the space of 2 weeks to a month that I have not been really on top form with my own self-care? Yes. In a nutshell, yes. And so on my masterclass, Punish or Nourish, I was just going through it yesterday because I'm presenting it every night this week. And it will be available on my YouTube channel once we've done the live presentations. But I was counting up how many of those examples of how we are unknowingly punishing ourselves emotionally, physically, and mentally. And there's 24. And I was looking at how many of those have I been doing, actually, honestly, over the last month or so. And the answer was quite a lot. I'm not going to give you the number, but it was more than I wanted it to be. And so this is where I've got to get honest with myself and just go, okay, take yourself in hand, do what you know you need to do, and get yourself back on track. I can tell myself the hows and whys and give myself all of the excuses and all of the reasons as to why I wasn't doing what I know helps. It's irrelevant. I'm feeling the feelings now, or I was yesterday. I don't feel too bad today because I've helped myself get my head around knowing what the issue is and knowing that I can do quite a lot to help myself. So I'm not in the same space and place as I was when I posted that post yesterday. But that's because I've done the work, because I chose to get detective and I chose to get curious as to what the heck is going on really. What haven't I been doing? So by discovering those things that I had been doing to punish myself, I can now choose to put in the stuff that is going to nourish me, body, mind, and soul. It's going to help me to manage the symptoms more. So let's look at what actually are the issues with Hashimoto's in terms of symptoms, because what we do know is it's flipping hard to get a diagnosis in the UK for sure from your GP. They just don't do the right tests. You have to get them done privately if you want the ones that will show up. So Hashimoto's is going to show up in your TPO and your AGI, right? Which is something that your GP doesn't do. Now, if you want to know what testing you should get, if you want to go private, you want to get a full thyroid panel. Now you can Google that. You can just literally go onto Google and just go, what is a full thyroid panel? The other place I suggest you look, and this is a website and a lady whose trainings that I have done, who I found really, really helpful when I discovered that I had got Hashimoto's. It's a lady called Isabella Wentz. That's WENTZ, Isabella Wentz. And she's a doctor who specializes in helping people with Hashimoto's and actually other autoimmune diseases, but that's her main thing. And she's written a couple of books on it. So if you know that you have it, or you suspect even that you have it, it's well worth checking out her website and potentially getting her book. But the symptoms that I had were mainly depression, as I've already said. And because my mum was manic depressive, there's depression kind of in the family. I just thought, well, that's what it is. But I'd got muscle aches. And that was the thing that kind of took me to the doctor, because it didn't make sense. Why have I got muscle aches? I was training. Yes, I already shared with you. I've been a fitness instructor and personal trainer for 32 years. And I train most days, or I teach most days, one or the other. But this was not muscle aches associated with exercise. This was different. And I knew my own body well enough to know that it was different. And so I share in my book, the GP thought it was a virus. And then I went back nearly a year later with the same symptoms. And she said, oh, it's potentially early menopause. And then I went back again. And she said, would you like some antidepressants? And that was the tin hat for me. I was like, no way, fudge off. I'm not taking medication. I want to know what's going on. That's when I did my private testing. But when I recognized the symptoms that were pointed out, I was going yes and yes and yes. It was like, oh my goodness, why was this never mentioned? So joint pain, muscle pain, not the same as the ones brought on by over-exercising, different. Fatigue, overwhelming fatigue. I wanted to sleep. I was putting it down to depression because I thought I just didn't want to face the world. But actually, I was tired. I was really tired. I was teaching classes and I needed to sleep afterwards before I went again. Or I needed to have, like a nap, and sometimes two. And I just thought that's depression. It wasn't. It was fatigue. My heart rate is slow. Now, my heart rate's always been slow. Ever been from a kid. It's called bradycardia, a naturally slow heart rate. But now knowing that thyroid issues are definitely in my genetics, could it potentially have been linked right back? Well, maybe. I'll never know. But slow heart rate is a thing. If your heart rate isn't normally slow and you suddenly feel that it kind of is, then that could potentially be an indicator. Thinning hair. Definitely. My hair was falling out in clumps. Well, not in massive clumps, but every time I washed my hair, there was just more than normal. And that had been going on for a while. I put it down to zinc deficiency. I also put it down to magnesium deficiency. And you'll see when I talk about those symptoms why. But actually, it makes sense that all of these link together. Dry skin. Now, again, my argument was, well, yeah, I've always had kind of dry skin. But then I've probably always had a thyroid that's not been functioning as well as it could. So also the classic one that they would talk about is the last, and I'm taking my glasses off because I don't know if you can see it, but the last little sort of third of your eyebrows thins a lot. Mine's not so obvious at the moment, but when I first got diagnosed, it was ridiculously obvious. It kind of looked like my eyebrows sort of stopped there instead of continuing on. So that's one of the classic things. My temperature was a massive one. And this is why my GP suggested it might be menopause, because I would get teeth chatteringly cold. I mean, literally, and I could not get warm. So being not able to regulate your body temperature, it's called. Now, I would go other extremes as well. I would get crazy hot. So I would literally be wrapping myself up in my duvet and my dressing gown. It was that cold. And then I'd be having to peel it all off. And memory loss. Now, I was putting it down to my past history and my issues with alcohol, but being ridiculously forgetful. So let me just run through those symptoms again. Fatigue, memory loss, hair thinning, slower heart rate, muscle pain and joint pain, feelings of depression, dry skin. All of those were what I was suffering. Now, Sjogren's is something that I, again, didn't recognize until I knew that dry mouth was one of the issues. And before I had my heart attack, I was having massive throat problems. Always had massive throat problems as a kid. Ended up having my tonsils out. Didn't really make any difference. Still had massive sore throat problems. And if anybody has had their tonsils out, you're probably going, yep, me too. Didn't really cure it. And it didn't. Well, now I look back, sore throat, dry throat, scratching, too much talking, putting inflammation on the vocal cords meant I ended up going to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And they decided that they wanted to operate on my vocal cords because they were so swollen. Now, nobody brought up Sjogren's, right? Nobody brought up Hashimoto's either. In fact, not one person brought up it's linked to your autoimmune issues. And I didn't know then either. So hands up, I was guilty of not looking at that because I didn't connect the two. Now it seems pretty darn obvious. Mucous membranes in your throat. So Sjogren's affects the mucous membranes. The classic symptoms is dry mouth, just not making the saliva. And if you've got dry mouth, it kind of makes sense that when you're sleeping, everything dries out, including your throat. And then I was talking for hours on end, teaching, coaching, and those poor old vocal cords were just getting a hit. And often I was teaching way back without a microphone, which did not help. So dry mouth, dry eyes. This is the one that really gets me down. And this is the one where I'm like, what the fuck? Because it makes your eyes gritty. And I'm already having to wear glasses now. And the prescription over time has gone from just a little small one to now I've got varifocals and recommended that I wear them all the time. I don't, to be honest, because I feel a little bit weird. When I'm walking down the street with my glasses on, I don't feel right. Spatially, balance-wise, I do feel odd. Maybe it's because I'm not looking where I'm supposed to be looking in my varifocals, but I take them off when I'm walking. I do wear them for driving, and I do need to wear them when I'm reading. But the grittiness that I get if I've been on screen for too long, if I read for too long, right, that really does piss me off. Okay, so that's one of the things that is classic when it comes to Sjogren's. Vaginal dryness too. Now, I know classic menopause ladies, you'll be going, yeah, but that's, yeah, well, yes, maybe, but maybe also you have got, when I've got an autoimmune issue, thinning hair, another one with Sjogren's. Dry skin, another one. So you can see the overlap with Hashimoto's. And then the biggie, tiredness, muscle pain, and joint ache. And these things make you feel a little bit like you're coming down with something, a little bit like you're just never 100%. And that's why it fucking sucks to have autoimmune issues, because it's that feeling like you're never 100% on top form. And combine that with kind of little niggles and now the rheumatoid arthritis. And so you can see why I wasn't in a great space over the weekend, because all of these symptoms kind of came on top. And what I found is, yes, I can talk, I can have words with myself, and I do frequently. And just go, right, come on, get your ass in gear. Do what you need to do, because it will make you feel better. And here's the thing, it will, and it always does. But for those of you who are struggling with an autoimmune issue, you will know the stuff you need to do that helps. But sometimes just getting yourself up out of bed or up off the sofa to actually do those things seems like the hardest mountain to climb ever. And I want you to know you're not on your own. It's perfectly normal. But somehow, some way, you need to be able to dig deep, have a word with yourself, have a word with the other version of you, the version of you that is stronger, the version of you who is not going to allow this autoimmune issue to drag you down. It's not going to let you stay a victim. It's going to let you manage it. Let that person drag you out of that bed and get you up off the sofa so that you can do what you need to do. Now, for me, it's a number of things that work. Vitamin D, massively important, preferably from sunlight. Do I take supplementation as well? Yes, I absolutely do. Magnesium, huge, massively important. And for those of you who want to understand the power of magnesium, again, use Google. We've all got it available to us, right? Just Google magnesium. You'll see that it does about 500 different things in our body, and we need it on a daily basis. Can we get it from food? Yes, we absolutely can. But if your digestive system is not working as well as it should, and that's the kind of catch-22 with autoimmune issues, it is likely that your digestive system is not working as well as it should, that you've probably got something called leaky gut. And if that's the case, your digestive system is not necessarily going to be actually utilizing and breaking down and actually assimilating all of the vitamins and the minerals that you need. So what I tend to do is recommend that people take the supplementation in the form of a liquid, put it in water where possible, because then it's just less for your digestive system to have to break down. And so vitamin D drops, vitamin D3 drops with K2 is something that I definitely recommend. Magnesium in a powder, right? So make it into a drink. Magnesium salts, Epsom salts, have a bath, right? Utilize those. Magnesium oil spray, because your skin is the biggest organ that you have. It will absorb these things. A multivitamin is something for sure. We know that zinc, chromium, manganese, B vitamins, hugely important, and C. Vitamin C, massively important. So have I been a little bit lax in taking my supplements for the last month? Yes, because I've kind of been running off here and doing things there. My routine's not been as routine. And so it's very easy for me to kind of go, oh, never mind, I've forgotten to do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then something else happens. And this is what I'm saying to you. I am human, but I also recognize that I need to take myself in hand, reflect, take a moment, just go, what the fudge is going on? stop. Because if you don't do what you need to do, then your body is going to make you stop completely and floor you. And that was kind of how I was feeling over the weekend. It's pretty close to that. Pretty close to literally just wanting to throw the duvet over my head and disappear. I don't feel like that today because I chose to do the work. I chose to work out what I hadn't been doing, what I needed to do, and actually how simple that is. Now, one of the things that is important for us to recognize is that some of the symptoms of vitamin and mineral deficiency sound very like symptoms of autoimmune issues. And this is why taking supplementation is so, so important. So let me just run by you. What are the symptoms of low D3, for example? You ready? Depression, fatigue, muscle aches and pains. Often constipation and cramps go with that too. So can you see that there's so much overlap with Hashimoto's and Sjogren's? So your vitamin D, if you are lacking in vitamin D and you've got autoimmune issues, you're going to feel even worse, right? So it makes sense. Get out in the sunlight, preferably in the first part of the day. Get it on your skin without sunblock, right? I go on a sunbed, right? And I know people who have hammered me for it, skin cancers, blah, 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 right? I'm not going on it daily for a stupid amount of time. I'm going on it once a week to get that hit of vitamin D, right? When the sun is out and when it's really nice weather, I will be out there for a good 10, 20 minutes with my skin exposed, not all of it, but I need to get it, my arms particularly, my legs potentially, my face and maybe my back, wherever, different area, different part of my body exposed every day, but it's important. So get outdoors. If you're in daylight all of the time, artificial light, I'm doing daylight, artificial light, you're not getting the vitamin D, right? Will a supplement help? Yes, damn right it will. Is it better though if you can get it from the sunshine? Yes. If you've got a couple or three or more autoimmune issues, is it wise to probably get a bit of both? Definitely, right? It's certainly not going to do you any harm, and it's potentially going to make you feel a damn sight better. Listen to the issues with a magnesium deficiency. So pain, muscle aches, joint discomfort, depression, and Raynaud's. Now, Raynaud's is where your extremities, right, completely just go. Right, complete lack of circulation. So I have this finger, and it's always the middle finger on my right hand that is the worst one, and it goes completely white. Right, like a dead person, no circulation, white, and it's fripping painful. Toes go. The most painful bit is when the blood circulation comes back. But Raynaud's is a classic one for magnesium deficiency, right? As are muscle cramps. So magnesium, as I've said, you can get it in Epsom salts. You can get it as a spray. Take it as a drink. Often, in fact, always, magnesium is part of a multivitamin. But if you do have autoimmune issues, my suggestion is that you take magnesium supplementation a couple of times a day, not just once, to get it in your system. Zinc is another one. Zinc deficiency, hair loss, memory loss, yeah, and it affects your immune function. It also can cause a little bit of pain around your muscles and your joints. Hey ho. So are you seeing the overlap? D3, magnesium, zinc. Chromium is another one for poor memory. So this is important. And omega-3, depression. So all of those supplements are really vitally important. And what I have got for you is, if you click the link, you can download my multivitamin and mineral deficiency symptom checker. Check that out, because you know what? If you're not taking a multivitamin and mineral supplement, if you're not taking an omega-3, if you're not taking D3 and magnesium, and you do know for sure that you've got an autoimmune disease, you're making it so much harder on yourself. You could feel better than you do. It's not going to cure it, right? Before you think, oh, all I need to do is take a load of vitamins and more is better and blah, blah. No, right? Your body can only assimilate and use a certain amount. So taking more is not better. If you want the actual amounts that are recommended, again, I'm going to defer you to a thyroid specialist. If you've got Hashimoto's, Dr. Isabella Wentz on her website will give you the amounts that she suggests and recommends. My suggestion is that you start with the lowest amount and see how you feel. And if it doesn't make any difference, then increase. But a multivitamin is the go-to. A good quality one, though, folks. I'm talking something like Designs for Health or Pure Encapsulations, because these are companies that don't put a lot of shit in their products. Now, to be honest, there are a number of up-and-coming companies, particularly in the UK, that are producing some really good stuff. Nature's Best is quite good. Now is also quite good, which you can get online. But don't start just taking all of these things as individual supplements. To begin with, I would suggest you start with a multi. Take a separate D3 in a drop. Get it if you can from sunlight, and definitely utilize magnesium in terms of a powdered drink. NutriAdvance do a fantastic range of mega mags. Their drinks are really, really palatable, maybe a little bit on the sweet side, but they are quite palatable. And then the other thing that we need to look at when it comes to autoimmune issues, and this is the bit that, you know, a lot of people don't want to hear, but hey ho, this is raw chatter, so I'm telling it like it is, right? You gotta be really careful with what you are eating, right? And I don't want to be that person who's hammering gluten, but the problem is that gluten will definitely cause you problems if you have got Hashimoto's and other thyroid issues, because the gluten molecules, when they get to where they're not supposed to be, are very much like there's what we call molecular mimicry going on. And so your immune system thinks that gluten molecules are like your thyroid molecules. And so if you are ingesting gluten, those invaders are going to be, they don't care whether it's actually gluten that they're trying to get rid of or whether it's thyroid. Okay, so eating gluten is not a good idea. Check out what's got gluten in it, folks. A lot of people think that some grains are gluten-free when they're not. Do you need to be a vigilante? Well, it depends on how powerful your symptoms are. But my suggestion is that where possible, you just get rid of gluten in every way, shape, or form and see how you feel. Dairy is another one for sure. And dairy really is something that is not recommended, and neither is soy if you have Hashimoto's problems. Now, this is where we get conflict, because if you have got estrogen issues and menopausal issues and you've been recommended to eat soy, then just go steady with it. That's what I'm going to say. There is no one size fits all. Everybody's kind of experience of autoimmune issues is going to be different. But the main reason that I wanted to talk about this is to help you to recognize that if you overdo things, if you keep yourself really, really busy, if you don't tune in to what your body is telling you and allow yourself time out to rest, let yourself sleep if fatigue is really getting on top of you, get out in the sunlight and just be in nature, because that will help to regulate your nervous system, let everything calm down, help your hormones to rebalance and reset. These things are so, so important. So if you're telling yourself you have to exercise hard every day, that's going to create stress. It's going to potentially make your issues worse. Walking, yoga, Pilates, great. I'm not saying don't do your running or your spinning or your cardio and your weights. Yes, do those. But be really, really mindful. If you're really struggling with muscle aches and pains, is it a good idea to start hammering and lifting heavy weights? Well, probably not, just from a common sense point of view. But could you potentially go for a run because it's more like meditation for you? Yeah, absolutely. But try and avoid pushing yourself too much to the point of exhaustion, because that fatigue is something that you need to be really, really mindful of. When it comes to food and diet, gluten, dairy, probably the main two. Staying hydrated is so, so important. And also look at nightshades for a lot of people and the allicin family, so garlic, onions. Nightshade families are peppers, aubergines, tomatoes, those kind of things. Now, if you know that you're sensitive, it's not an issue. If you're not sure, don't be like crazy going, that's it, cutting everything out, right? Why don't you just have a little go at leaving some things out? The obvious ones that make us problems do tend to be the allicins, the garlic, and the onions. And for some people, they already kind of know if they've got issues with peppers or tomatoes, because you may find that you get a little bit of gas or bloating or reflux. And I know for me, I love the taste of these things. They stay with me for like 2 or 3 days. So that's kind of a clue. And the final thing that I want to say is with autoimmune issues, if you are over a certain age, and as I've already said, issues with your gut are huge when it comes to autoimmune issues. We need to look after it, we need to take care of it. Glutathione is something that I do highly recommend, and that is something to be taken separately. But I would talk to a healthcare practitioner about how much and how to take it. It is included in a good quality multivit, and that should be sufficient. I can't emphasize enough that taking more of any one thing is not going to help you to feel better or heal faster. It doesn't work like that, right? You need to take the enough for it to work with all of the other things, so that we're not creating more of an imbalance, right? So more is not better of anything in any area. And I've already done a podcast on that, which you can seek out if you want to. Better is better, more is never better. But the thing that you need to kind of take on board as well is that eating a variety of foods is really, really important. Chewing well, eating slowly. But also, if you are over a certain age, as I was saying, then you potentially need some help with digestive enzymes, and probiotics are going to be helpful as well. So having things like miso soup, if you're okay with drinking apple cider vinegar, then that's great. If you don't have any issues with fermented foods, so that would be perfect. Things like sauerkraut and pickles and that sort of stuff will absolutely help in getting the right kind of gut bugs in there to help your body to digest and break stuff down. But eating slowly is really important. Chewing very, very well. And what I will kind of finish up and wrap up with is just saying, if you do have issues and you're not getting the answers that you want from your GP, then do some research yourself. As I say, have a look online at autoimmune specialists YouTube. Dr. Huberman, as I've said, Andrew Huberman's podcast, he has some great guests on this stuff. Dr. Isabella Wentz is my kind of go-to person for thyroid. There are other people out there. I just like the way that she comes across and speaks and talks about it. But do your research and then go to your GP and say, this is what I've found, and I think that, I have this symptom and this and this and this. Can you help me to get a proper test and a diagnosis, and then see what happens? I personally have not had success with my GP. That's a whole other story. Not going to go down that road, because I don't want to come across as sounding anti-GPs. I just think that, unfortunately, my surgery isn't great in what they offer. And so I am not taking any medication. I'm not taking anything for my thyroid. That may change if my symptoms, even with me managing them well, start to get a little bit worse. And here's the thing, they will over time. I'm fully aware of that. The most important thing is that I manage it so that I don't start to get other organs being affected massively. And so what I can say is a lot of it is this. A lot of it is how we think and feel. I am not a victim to my autoimmune issues. Yes, they piss me off, right? They really do piss me off a lot of the time. Do I wish I didn't have them? Of course, right? But for a nanosecond, because I do, and that's it. A lot of the symptoms and the reasons that I have them, I'm fully aware of. Hold my hands up, my shit, my fault, right? Didn't know that this could be the consequences of being alcohol dependent for all the years that I was, of bulimia, of anorexia, and whole disordered eating issues. But it is what it is, and I do have them, and I am managing them, and that's the important thing. And there will be times when I find that it's like, what the fuck? Okay, let myself get angry, let myself sleep, give myself the opportunity to reflect, get honest. Where am I not looking after myself? What can I actually do to help myself to feel better? Because I'm going to finish with this. Ain't nobody going to save you, folks. Okay, it is up to you. It isn't as hard as you think it is. And it certainly isn't as hard if you do it with some support, and try not to do it on your own. And if you don't know where to go for support, then reach out to me on social media. I'd love to connect with you. Send me an email, vicky@vickymidwood.com. Be happy to respond to you if you're not a social media fan, but don't sit with this stuff alone. Sometimes just having a conversation about what's going on, what you suspect is going on, how you're feeling, can make you feel so much better. And that's where I'm going to leave it, on a positive note. You can feel better. You can manage your symptoms. You just got to be kind to yourself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Whatever you're doing, take care of you. You only have one body, as far as we know. Look after it. It's trying its best to look after you. Take care now.